In today's Leeds news, more grey interest update on Rodon and Bamford. January funds available, patience needed. Schmidt's 11th hour interest, and Farke pressure starts to build. Morning folks, Jay here, Monday morning, the 16th of September with your Leeds United news. Hope you're having a good day. Had a nice weekend after the disappointment of the result on Saturday. We won't mess about, we'll get straight into this. There is some news on some potential pressure building on Daniel Farke, as well as some updates from what happened at the weekend and some interest in Leeds United players and potential January funds available. We start off with the interest in Harry Gray, and this one has popped up again this week after some interest late last week from, at the time, rumoured that Newcastle were interested in signing the player and had spoken to Leeds about the young striker. Well, now, according to the boot room, they claim that there is other interest in signing young Harry Gray. According to TBR, they claim that Tottenham Hotspur have joined the race and, like Newcastle, have already held talks with Leeds United around the youngster. The report also states that it's not just those two teams that are keeping an eye on the player right now. It also claims that Arsenal, Chelsea and Liverpool are also in the mix and are keeping an eye on the player. In the report, it says that Spurs have spoken to Leeds United about the player and are planning on being kept in the loop around the player's development. Now, whether that's Leeds telling them or them going and monitoring the situation themselves remains to be seen, but it seems that Leeds could have a big, tough task on their hands of keeping Harry Gray at the club beyond this season. He can't sign a pro deal until he turns 17 years of age. He's still 15, he's 16 in October, so there's still a bit of time to go on that one before he gets tied down. Moving into the update from the weekend, and there was one player missing from the bench and one player took a pretty hefty knock towards the back end of the game, and that's Bamford out of the team and Rodon with a clash of heads. But on Patrick Bamford, Daniel Farke has given an update and said that pretty much there's no new injury here. Bamford's not injured, that it's just purely down to training minutes, that he's missed 11 weeks of training and they want to get him right back up to top training stats before he can get back in the squad. He is expected, though, should the week go fine, to be back in the Leeds United squad by next weekend. Joe Rodon was a slightly different situation. He clashed heads with Josh Brownhill in the second half of the game. Both players getting treatment and being very heavily bandaged up, and in fact both players left the park before the game had finished. On Rodon, Farke believes that Joe Rodon has avoided any concussion and has passed all of the relevant concussion protocol stuff, but he did say that Rodon went into the game suffering from a bit of a tightness in his hip, but that he was desperate to play in the game and insisted on playing and played through the injury that he has. You'd hope that clears up a bit during the week. He has been in brilliant form, although again I thought he was better at the weekend than he has been at the early parts of the season, but you can't say that when you lose a game, unfortunately. So yeah, fingers crossed he'll be okay for the weekend. Moving into some January news. It's early, but we thought it would start. It's about 13 weeks, 12 weeks away from the January window opening, and we're already planning on what we need to get done to fill the gaps that we left from the summer window. But on one, it appears that there could be some funds available should Leeds decide to go in a certain direction in January. According to the Sunderland Echo and the Yorkshire Evening Post, they both claim that Leeds may be looking to add to the squad in January already. Sunderland youngster Elazar Mayenda is a player, apparently, according to the Sunderland Echo, that Leeds United have a significant interest in and would be keen on signing after he's only just made his return to Sunderland. Mayenda scored 2 goals against Sheffield Wednesday and also added 2 assists in their 3-1 win over Portsmouth, and has started the season very strong from a very young player's perspective. Mayenda, as I said, has already scored and assisted this season, and according to the publication, they claim that Leeds may have funds available in January should they decide to make a move for this player, but it is unsure at this moment whether Leeds will move for that player or not. Moving on to Pascal Struijk's reaction to the weekend's game, and he has asked for a little bit of patience regarding a certain group of Leeds United players. There's a huge amount of frustration from the game at the weekend, and rightly so, after dominating the game and failing to get a result very similar to things that we saw happen last year. But Pascal Struijk has insisted that this Leeds United side will take time before it hits its full rhythm. Leeds dominated the game against Burnley, but a toothless second half meant Leeds left the ground frustrated at the end of full time with a 1-0 defeat. Mateo Joseph and Willy Gnonto both had gilt-edged chances to get Leeds United on the score sheet, and both of them probably should have scored, but Mateo Joseph failing hit the target 1v1 and Willy Gnonto putting his strike straight at the goalkeeper meant Leeds left frustrated. A shout for a penalty as well, but didn't get it, and you can't always rely on officials to win you the game. We didn't do enough to win it. On the squad itself and its timing, Stroke has said the following on this. For new players, it takes time to adjust to the team and style of play, but the lads who played the majority of today know what we have to do. For the new guys, it will take time for them to adjust, but I'm sure that they'll get there pretty quick. They're not all in the team. They're not all playing a lot of football. Solomon started the game. Outside of that, that was pretty much. Tanaka had less than 10 minutes. Take the stoppages out of it. After that, the rest is maybe 15-20 minutes. Not a massive amount of time to really make much of an impact. So you'd hope they get that going forward. A bit more time to make more of an impact. The substitutions and timing, again, are obviously a topic for conversation. We move on to a player that Leeds United did bring in the transfer window, and very late in the window there was some interest in it, and that's Isaac Schmidt, who took up his place on the Leeds United bench for what could have been his debut at the weekend. Ultimately turned out not to be, as the player didn't get off the bench onto the pitch after a week working with Leeds manager Daniel Farke. Leeds did secure Schmidt late in the transfer window, and according to his agent, Leeds had to fight off some late interest from Germany to get the deal done. Schmidt's agent Stephen Lang said the following: other clubs were interested, including Bundesliga clubs, but Leeds are a club with tradition and a rich history. For us, it was clear that joining Leeds and moving to England was a great opportunity for Isaac. On the project sold to them by Leeds, Lang said, the project perfectly matches what we were looking for, so we didn't hesitate. The fact that this is such a great club and it must return to the Premier League. Schmidt's last action with his former club was to score a goal in a European competition, but his last act in the Swiss League was to pick up Goal of the Month winner in one of his final games for the club in the Swiss League before he left. A lovely right-footed volley from the right-hand side across the keeper into the far corner will pick him up that award, so well done to Schmidt on that. We haven't seen him yet. We haven't got to see him on the park. Question marks over his actual positioning. Leeds have labelled him as a cover for Jayden Bogle on the right hand side, although predominantly in his career he's played on the left hand side, but Leeds opted for a right footed Sam Byram at the weekend instead of giving Schmidt his debut. These kind of questions just keep popping up when it comes to how Daniel Farke decides to make substitutions, but we haven't seen Schmidt yet. We might see him yet. He's a long term prospect for Leeds. He's not necessarily the player to come in right now and replace Bogle or Firpo, but he is very much a long term prospect for Leeds United. And then moving on to the story that's come up over the course of the weekend from topics. It's probably, for me, it's a little bit early to be getting into this, but the story is out there, so we'll cover it. But there's a little bit of pressure starting to build on Daniel Farke, and the second season was always going to bring more pressure and a different type of pressure. The pressure Farke receives this year is pure expectation. You narrowly miss out on promotion, and yes, you've lost a couple of key players in the summer. Well, Leeds still did spend the most money of Championship clubs, and Leeds have the highest wage bill in the Championship by a comfortable margin. On paper, this is still a very strong Leeds United side, and you would expect that once this season started, Leeds would hit the ground running. We were told by Pride Morate that we'd be ready. Daniel Farke said, come the 1st of May, we would be ready to go. We weren't ready to go, and we have unfortunately managed to lose more games at home already this part of the season than we did in the entirety of last season. So it's not been perfect, but it's hard to take the positives from the game against Burnley. There were positives in that game, but when you lose, it's very hard to take those positives from it or even talk about them. But during the interview that the Square Ball did with Angus Kinnear didn't exactly jump to push back insinuation from Dan Moylan that there might be some friction between the board and the manager when it came to talking about the number 10 position. Graham Smith in the Yorkshire Evening Post has also added this, and he says that Farke's position is no longer as certain as it once was. Smith says that it's an unknown how Farke's bond with the 49ers is following the failed promotion from last season, and Kinnear chalked the tension during the interview just down to stuff that happens at football clubs, and there's nothing unusual about a manager and a board being a little bit tense with each other. But he did make a point to saying that Daniel Farke was the right man for Leeds right now, and as Graham Smith says in his piece, what does that look like in the future though? Smith's full comments are as follows: and what about the right manager for Leeds United in a year's time? The question naturally asks itself as Kinnear's statement hung in the air. There is of course only one way that Farke will be at Leeds come September 2025, and that's if Leeds are playing Premier League football. Even then, it doesn't feel as certain as it once did because of the way the window played out, because of what he said, what Kinnear said, and what the fans were left saying at full time in Leeds' 1-0 defeat by Burnley. So you go back to Daniel Farke's comments about the fact that he didn't get a 10 and he wanted a 10, and he waited till the last week of the window to publicly state that the club don't get a 10. He's commented on not getting that and missing out on a 10. Angus Kinnear said to go on and explain that we did say at the time calling your bosses out publicly for things like that is a career limiting move from a lot of managers, and it won't be taken quite well by a lot of the people that are involved there. So whether it's tense or not, it's a weird start. You're looking at Sunderland pushing away. You think, well, will they maintain that? We said this last year at Ipswich, and they did ultimately. You would hope that Leeds, once they start to find their rhythm, can start to go on a run here, but you'd want to see more encouraging football. It's not just the manner of the result of the weekend, it's the manner of the performance in the second half. First half, I thought Leeds were very good. Outside of the mistake, Leeds have 2 very good chances to score, should have had a penalty, playing decent football. In the second half, you just get this massive drop off. We've seen it time and time again from Leeds. There's drop off in the second half, and it's not been addressed. So it must be part of a style of play that we're working on, because it doesn't seem to be an issue, and it's a huge issue for me. And it's everyone has said in the comments from the weekend. I did try and balance the weekend's review by kind of saying there are good things in this and there are also negatives as well, but lack of creativity, lack of a spark, taking the creative players off the park at the wrong time, all that kind of stuff adds up. So Daniel Farke will be under pressure from the first game of this season till the last game of this season, no matter what way we did keyed up. And I'm not in a rush to sack a manager, but he will be under pressure. There's no doubt about that. But we'll have to see how it pans out. We will have a match day review with a panel tonight at 7 o'clock. So you can check that out. If 7 or 8 o'clock, you can check that out later on if you want to. I'll have some details on the channel later. And back tomorrow morning for more Leeds news. I'll talk to you then. Have a great day. See ya. Bye.